Welcome to our podcast. This is Friends on Fire.
I'm Mike. I'm a lifelong devotee of financial independence. I even wrote a book about it.
And I'm Maggie, a newer convert, but just as passionate, especially on the intersection of minimalism and financial independence.
We're one and the same.
We are two like-minded friends who believe that talking about money with your friends and family opens the door to financial well-being.
The Friends on Fire podcast is about dispelling myths, building financial acumen, and sharing your financial independence journey with the people you care about.
This is Friends on Fire. Hey, Maggie.
Hey, Mike.
How's it going?
Good. Sorry I'm late. I know I'm always late to record our podcast.
I feel like your sorries don't really mean a whole lot anymore.
I'm not sure why, but like when I was apologizing to you and I was like, it was my friend's birthday. I had to go have a drink. It was a little impromptu. By the way, happy birthday, Robin. She's a big fan of the podcast. But when I was telling you my excuse this week, you were like, it's always something.
Yeah, it is.
And then you were asking me to pull up something. Like you wanted me to pull up a voicemail that we're about to listen to. And when you said, can you pull up? And I was like, how you pull up, Mike? And he didn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah, I still don't know what you're talking about.
How you pull up? Well, Mike was asking me to pull something up. And I was like, how you pull up, Mike? And he didn't know what I was talking about. And so I was starting to play Rockstar by DaBaby. And then Mike reminded me that our YouTube videos get flagged when I play copyrighted music. So I'm not going to play how you pull up, but how you pull up, baby. Anyways, moving on.
I'll go listen to it later.
It's great.
All right. So speaking of pulling up voicemails, we got an interesting one that I've actually been getting quite a few questions about recently. And I don't know if it's just that people are like in their homes more and thinking about their mortgages, or people are unsure about the financial future, but there's a lot of concern about mortgage expense. And I've had a lot of questions about what people should do about it. And so we got a great voicemail, which will kick off our topic for today. So let's play it from a listener.
Let's pull it up. Let's see how I pull it up. The voicemail, that is.
Oh, okay.
Here's
is
how
that
I
a
pull
lyric
up
from the song?
I don't know. No, it's just.
I still don't know this song. All right, let's play this voicemail.
Hi, Mike and Maggie, or Maggie and Mike. This is Brandon. I got a question for you guys. I recently just paid off a car that we've got, and I'm looking to use that extra money and invest that. But due to all the uncertainty in the market, I was just kind of curious about what you guys' thoughts are, maybe diverting that to paying down the mortgage. In particular, I was also wondering if you guys also had some tools to help me try to evaluate the benefit of doing so, whether that be reducing interest or cutting years off the mortgage so that my wife and I could fully evaluate it and make sure we make the right decision. I would appreciate the feedback. Again, Brandon. And Mike, just a quick jab here. I heard on one of your recent podcasts you're using shredded cheese. Come on, man. The cost per ounce, shredded versus not shredded, it's there. I hope that doesn't mean that you're one of those people who also buys pre-cut fruit. Anyway, thanks for the advice. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
It's a great question. And I guess let me address a couple things. First, shredded cheese, I guess it is more expensive than a block of cheese.
It's totally more expensive, man. But shredded fruit, that is an actual problem.
Okay, cut up fruit. I don't know who eats shredded fruit.
Sorry, I meant cut up fruit. Cut up fruit on levels of ridiculousness. Cut up fruit is like a 10. Shredded cheese is like a 5.
I would agree with that. But I am interested in what the premium is for shredded cheese over block cheese. So I'm going to go take a look at it next time I'm at Aldi.
We should do like a whole analysis.
I thought you were going to say a whole episode on shredded versus block cheese.
Well, when we run out of episode topics, we'll start on that one.
So like episode 2150 will be shredded
we'll
versus
know that
block.
we've sort of hit a wall when we're like, okay, let's pull up the shredded cheese episode.
I like it. We'll just have it in the can ready to go. So what I liked about his question was that he wants to make his extra money work. So he's cutting out a car payment. He has this quote unquote extra money in his budget now. And instead of spending it or just keeping it in cash, he wants to do something with it. And I think that is the absolute right mindset. The reason I wanted to do a whole episode about this, Maggie, is that one, it's relevant for people right now, but you say something pretty frequently on our shows, either in interviews or when we're talking about our personal situations, that I wanted to challenge you a little bit on.
I say so many things. I have no idea what this could be.
You got to let me finish.
Could be anything.
So you say that paying off a mortgage, and in your case, paying off your mortgage quite early, was an emotional decision and not the best financial decision to make. And I understand where you're coming from, but in actuality, it is a good financial decision. And sometimes, depending on your situation, can be a great financial decision.
I want to hear more.
While the benefit to you might appear to be primarily emotional, there is a strong return on investment for paying it off quicker or paying it off entirely.
Yeah, I'm interested to have this discussion and hear more, Mike, because I make that comment a lot because so many people have made comments to me over the years of like, you could make more money doing other things with your money than paying off a very low interest rate mortgage, right? And they bust out with like a spreadsheet or something. And I've always sort of ignored that and said, look, that's fine. I just don't care. For me, it gives me a sense of security and a very good feeling to know that my home is fully paid off and that I have zero debt. And that's more important to me than a little bit more money in the long run. But I'm interested to hear that maybe that's, not all I should be thinking about.
Yeah, I think you will end up at the end of this episode feeling pretty good about your decision. Let's start with just a very quick overview of how mortgages work.
Hey, do you think we should both share the fact that we've paid off our mortgages first? Because we usually we'll talk about that.
Oh, yes.
Just to kind of context
Excellent point, Maggie. So this is a topic near and dear to our heart because we have both paid off our mortgages in full and did so quite early. How many years did it take you to pay off your house?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you count like every house I've ever lived in, but
the house you're living in right now, Maggie.
The house I'm living in right now, probably 10 years.
That's pretty good. So I paid off mine in 7.
You just wanted to know so you could beat me.
I honestly didn't know how quickly you had paid it off. But point is, it's possible to do it if you're focused and disciplined and has a lot of financial benefit, as we'll get into. So
we paid off our rental house mortgage also because I'm so obsessed with like no debt.
Rental properties are a little bit different.
Yeah.
So,
okay,
but we are
maybe
talking about
two.
Primary homes, the ones you live in that don't generate revenue. So it's not a quote unquote investment. So how mortgages work? You put some money down, meaning you contribute part of the purchase price to the bank. It shows you have skin in the game and it lowers your risk. The bank then lends you the remainder. So you put down 20%, the bank then loans you 80% for 15, 20, 30 years. Each month, you make a payment to the bank that's fixed and it will stay the same over the course of your term. It is part equity, meaning it goes to pay down the balance of your house. It's called the principal. And then interest. You have a schedule of payments. So over time, your payment amount will be the exact same, but your first payment will have very high interest, very low principal, and then over time it changes. So let me give you an example. Let's say you have a $300,000 house. You put 60% down, which is 20%. So you have a $240,000 mortgage. This is the balance that is accruing
Who puts
interest.
60% down on their house?
$60,000 down.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Did I say 60%?
I'm not sure.
So $240,000 mortgage. So at 4% interest, your payment will be $1,181. On your first payment, interest will be $828 of that, the majority of it. And the principal, the part that goes towards the equity to pay down the balance, is the rest. But over time, the interest amount decreases because the amount you are borrowing, the outstanding loan, goes down. So at the very last payment you'd make, your interest might be $1 and your principal would be $1,180, for example.
And the interest in the beginning of those scenarios is just crazy.
It is crazy.
The amount you are paying.
Over the course of a loan, and actually your lifetime of borrowing and paying down houses, the amount of interest you'd pay is just mind-boggling.
Well, I think they legally have to show you that table when you're signing up for a mortgage that shows you what you're going to pay over the life of the loan.
All right, so why mortgages are good. Buying a house is a lifestyle choice. We've talked about it a couple times on this show. Renting is not a bad thing. It's not throwing away your money, but having a home that you live in, it is your property, you can do what you want, you live in a community, that's like a great lifestyle choice. It is what I would consider, I think Maggie, you'd agree, like a very acceptable form of lifestyle inflation. Owning a home, great part of life. In addition to the emotional and lifestyle benefits of it, it can appreciate in value. So home values go up over time. This is part of inflation. And so if you buy a house for $300,000 and you live in it for 20 years, you might sell it for $600,000 and you've made some money on the purchase of that house.
I think most people assume it will appreciate in value, or they often wouldn't want to buy that house in that area. Or
yes, almost always houses are going to go up unless you're in a part of the world where people are exiting and not living there. But if you're living in a major metropolitan area, your home value is going to go up. What they don't tell you, though, is that even though the home value might go up, you are going to put a ton of money into repairs and maintenance and utilities. And so it's not like you just make a ton of money on these houses. But anyway, why mortgages are bad. I think people get confused because of the ubiquity of mortgages. Just because everybody has them doesn't mean they are good. As a financial instrument, mortgages are still an expense. So you pay interest. That is a cost. It's a very real dollar amount that you are paying to a bank. You have to earn that money and give it away in order to own this home. So interest is real, and it's something you need to avoid.
Hey, that make like a great t-shirt. Interest is real. That's all I have to say. What about tax deductions? I feel like that's something people always make a claim for, of why a mortgage is a good thing to have, because you can deduct the interest.
Yes, I get this a lot too. And I think it's one of these things that you hear from lenders and in advertising, but people don't fully grasp. So if you are paying $10,000 a year in interest and you get a 25% deduction on it, means effectively you're paying $7,500 a year in interest. You're still paying $7,500 a year in interest. It's not like that money goes away and it's all of a sudden free. If you pay $0 in interest and you don't get a deduction, then you pay $0. It is a better deal. But the way this is confusing for people is that there's something called a standard deduction, which means that the government just says, we don't really want you to itemize all your various deductions and charitable contributions and mortgage interest payments. We're just going to give you, for a family, $24,800 as the standard deduction. Because the government gives you that anyway, you only really get a benefit from your mortgage if your deductions are over $24,800. So let's say you had no other deductions and you paid $25,000 in mortgage interest. Because the government is going to give you $24,800 in deduction anyway, it means you're only really getting a benefit on the extra $200 on top of that to get to $25,000. And so most people don't pay this much in mortgage interest. Because the government's giving it to you anyway, you don't get any benefit from having mortgage interest. So this is just a complete falsehood that people don't really think about, but consider it a benefit and a reason to continue having a mortgage.
That's interesting. I just did some quick math on that too. And a $600,000 house, assuming it was all mortgaged at 4% interest, that's 24%. So, or that's $24,000. So you got to have like a fairly expensive, higher value house, at a decent interest rate to actually hit that amount, like you said, which most people would not have.
It's only over $24,800 that you are getting.
So it's just the incremental amount. It's not like once you hit that amount, you get the full amount. Because
if you have a $600,000 mortgage or a $0 mortgage, or no mortgage, I should say, the government's going to give you almost $25,000 in the standard deduction for a family. So some more reasons that mortgages are bad. They don't go away. So for 30 years or however long you have your term for, you are on the hook for that payment every single month. And if you miss it, you are in trouble and they can take your house away.
That's my emotional thing, is like, I don't want that hovering over me for the next 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
I want to just know that, like, if something crazy were to happen, like, I got a roof over my head, It's a really good feeling.
I totally agree with you.
Also, if something were to happen to this roof, I know you got extra space at your house too. And like Friends on Fire would always have room for each other. Right?
I would give you a great deal on rent.
If I tested negative for COVID first.
On a daily basis. Because you're out and about. You're going to birthday parties, going out to dinner, apparently. So I feel like you
go
need
out
to
to
be
dinner.
tested.
It was a socially distanced drink. It was very safe.
All right.
And they took my temperature.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, so let's go back to my original challenge of your thought that it's only a emotional decision.
Yeah.
Paying off a mortgage is also a good financial move. Now, the argument...
You know what argument has been made to me before?
Mm-hmm.
Would you borrow against your house to put it in the market? And I'm always like, well, no. And they're like, well, you shouldn't pay off your mortgage. And I'm like, I don't know if I follow all that.
That's interesting, but it's sort of a confusing way to look at it, and not the way most people would be in a situation to pay down their mortgage. So if you are borrowing against your home, you are taking a lump sum, let's say $100,000 out of your house and investing it. You could earn a pretty good return on that, maybe, in the market. But most people are not sitting on $100,000 and thinking, should I put this all towards my mortgage or should I put it into the market? They are sitting on, like our listener, Brandon, a few $100s a month. And that is a very different decision, because most people are not going to be interested in every single month going and putting $400 extra into the market. It takes work. You have to figure out what you're going to be invested in. It may not be the right time. You may not get the best return on it. If you knew that you could make a better return, percentage return, than your mortgage interest, it wouldn't be a good idea. But keep in mind, your mortgage payments do not go away. So if you put $100,000 into the market and that's all, like you don't have any other income to pay down your mortgage, you would have to be selling your investments every single month to get your payment amount. And so it's not cut and dry that would you make a higher percentage return in the market versus your mortgage. There's like some practical elements to this as well. Here's another thing to consider. You could very well lose money in the market. Historical averages, let's call it 7%. You might look and say, well, my interest rate is 4% on my mortgage, and I'm confident I could go get 7. But really, paying down your mortgage and saving the cost is the equivalent of tax-free income, because you don't pay income taxes on money you don't spend as a savings amount. And so if you were to gross up that 4% interest rate to account for what it would have to be in income, you're looking at 5 or 6% in income that you would have been earning in the market. So it's sort of an equivalent return on investment. So again, if you are earning 7% in the market, you pay taxes on that income. So it drops down to 6 or 5%. But if you are avoiding a cost, that is tax-free. So it would be the equivalent of earning 6% and then paying a couple percent to get to 4% net. Did that make sense, Maggie?
It does. Are you looking at the look on my face where I look mildly confused?
Yes. I realize it is kind of a confusing concept without looking at numbers.
I was just going to say, I'm super visual. Like if you throw a spreadsheet in front of me, it totally makes sense. When someone verbally throws out a bunch of numbers, sometimes I'm just like, okay, I trust you. I believe you.
Let me give you a different
trust the
example.
numbers.
A company pays you $10. You have to pay taxes on it. Let's say you get $7 back in the bank. If all of a sudden, on an expense that you can't avoid, like your electric bill, they give you a $10 credit, or you cut it by $10, you don't pay taxes on that. You still have $10 more than you did before, but it's tax-free. Okay? So when you are saving on interest payments, you don't pay taxes on it. And so it is the equivalent of her earning a higher return in the market.
Okay, I'm like, I kind of get it, but like, keep giving me reasons why this is a good idea.
Okay.
Because I'm still on the like, I'm 100% emotional. Like I sort of like, flip past the numbers.
Yeah. Okay. The other reason has to do with diversification. You might be able to make more money in the market, but you should have some of your net worth in real estate, because real estate moves differently than the market. It is a more stable investment. And if you were to keep let's you keep borrowing against your home and putting all your money in the stock market, and the stock market crashes, you could lose a ton of money. So the principle of diversification is why you should consider paying off your mortgage and why it might be the best idea for you. If you are heavily invested in the stock market, a great way to diversify is through real estate.
I really like the reason around diversification. And I do remember when I was getting aggressive to paying it off, and even I was aggressive paying it off before I met you. And then I got, I think, even a little bit more like aggressive and final nudge to do it. But I do agree that diversification was a big element because I thought, sometimes I don't know where to invest my money and I don't want to have too much money in cash. And it's a guaranteed, interest rate on my money. So
yes, guaranteed.
That's
that is
better
the key
than nothing.
point.
Yeah. I got one other reason for you.
Go.
And I'm not quite sure how to verbalize this, but I'll try in my roundabout way. It sort of forces you to save in a harder place to get your money back. So to me, when I and I hear of people doing this all the time, when you're aggressively paying off against your mortgage, it kind of makes your money really hard to get to, right? Because it's a lot of effort to like take out a loan against your house. You could, in the case of emergency, you totally could. You could sell your house, buy a new house, whatever you needed to do. But it's a lot easier to get to your money in the market and like make some silly decision where you're all of a sudden like, I'm going to buy a boat or something like this. So to me, it felt like in addition to a guaranteed a guaranteed interest rate, it guaranteed my savings, right? Like it took my money out of my hands and put it in a very safe place that I knew would continue to make money and continue to appreciate.
That is a great point. It requires a lot of discipline to take thousands of dollars and put it into this house that you might not sell for decades. I mean, that is really putting it away. Like you can't see the dollar amounts in the bank. You can't move it around. It's kind of stuck in the equity of your home.
But it's so good because if you can get excited about that game, then you almost forget how hard it is to get to your money, which is a good thing, right? And it is still there. So if something crazy happened in your life and you had to downsize or you needed to get to that, you could totally get to it. It is real equity that you have built up.
So what you said about the guaranteed interest rate that you're saving, that's like a really critical point here. And so let me just give you a quick example. Let's say you have $10,000 that you want to put towards your mortgage and you have a 4% interest rate. You would be saving $400 a year for the life of that loan on the $10,000 you are putting down now. And so that's a real number because you have no way to avoid that expense. And so if you put $10,000 down now, every single year until the loan is paid off, you are saving 4% of that $10,000. That is a good return on investment. And again, you're not paying taxes on that return.
And I mean, like it's a solid return. It's a respectable return. It may not be the best return you could ever get on any amount of thing, but it's not risky. It's a solid return. It's sort of, hidden away where it's hard for you to get to. I mean, I will say I always thought it was 100% emotional and like not the best financial decision, but I now feel better. Like turns out I'm financially smart and emotionally smart.
Yes. You paid off your mortgage and then decided to buy a $35,000 Subaru.
Boy, you're never going to let that go, huh?
I'm never going to let it go.
I love her so much, though. She's like a new member of the family.
Did you give her a name
We're still
yet?
working on names. We're working on names. I really wanted to name her Roxanne, but then my husband, after like a popular song, but also like the old Roxanne song. And then my husband was like, like every Roxanne is like basically talking about like a prostitute. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't name her after her. I mean, no offense to prostitutes, but I just thought maybe. So I've been calling her Roxy lately. I don't know what I'm going to call her, but it's definitely a girl.
Okay. Well, I'm sure our listeners are on the edge of their seats.
I'm sure they really care about this. Let's keep going.
Okay. I do think it's important to cover the other side of this, why paying it off might be a bad idea. So going back to diversification, if you are entirely in real estate and you have very little money in your retirement accounts or your savings, don't keep putting more towards your house. You need to have some money in the market. You need to have some liquidity. And so you and I think the people who are considering this are the ones who are already contributing to retirement accounts, already have a emergency fund. And so they are diversifying the other way, but don't put all your money in real estate. You don't want to put all your investments into one category.
Yeah, well, I think we should clarify also to that point, Mike, we don't recommend paying aggressively off on your mortgage if you have higher debt. So if you have credit card debt, if you have a car loan that's at 6% and your house is at 4%, like pay all of that off first. So we've assumed that you've paid, and I think that's a really important point that may have kind of like gone past some people. And so like Dave Ramsey's famous for his baby steps, right? paying off your house is like the last one before building wealth. So, he's like, pay off all your debt, have an emergency fund, make sure that you're funding your children's college funds, etc., and then pay your house off aggressively.
Yeah.
And, some of those orders could be some of that order could be a bit negotiable, but certainly don't avoid higher interest debt like credit cards, cars, etc., and then try to pay your home off.
That's a great point. And to expand on that just a little bit, you want to make sure that you are first maxing out your 401k, contributing to a Roth IRA if you're eligible, doing an HSA. There are higher guaranteed rates of return that you can get through different savings tools. So paying off your mortgage quicker is a fantastic idea, but you need to be doing the other things first, because the other things, although smaller, are more powerful. So once you get to the point where Brandon, our listener, is, where I'm assuming he's contributing the max to all of his retirement accounts, and now he has a few $100s extra from this car payment that went away, that's the right time to start paying down your mortgage faster. All right, Maggie. So this was a challenge to your comment that it's purely an emotional decision. I think you'd agree now that it's actually quite a good financial decision, and you did a great job paying it off fast. Thanks.
Good for you too. You did a good job.
Thank you.
I agree. I said earlier, like you flipped me over to thinking like it is not just an emotional decision. So I feel good about it. And I but I will say on the emotional front again, it is an amazing feeling. I cannot describe how good it feels. And so I say that in a way to encourage people. I mean, I think paying off all debt feels good, right? Mm-hmm. That's just the last bit of debt for most people, right? That's the one thing where many people are like, oh, I don't have any debt except my mortgage. And I'm like, well, that's still debt. So again, that's really great if you have no debt except your mortgage. But think about also paying your mortgage off, because I don't know how to say it. It is the best feeling in the world. Not in the whole world, but it's like right up there.
And Maggie, I think you'd agree that recently, as our company was doing furloughs and layoffs, the fact that we didn't have mortgage payments hanging over our heads meant that if we were to get furloughed or lose our jobs, that is big time stress reliever. So now is the time to be considering doing this sort of thing if you're able to, because the next time a situation comes around, or when you lose your job or when you get furloughed, not having a mortgage payment is a big benefit.
I love it. I agree.
All right, let's do our key takeaways on this episode. Number 1, consider diversifying your quote-unquote investment portfolio by paying off your mortgage and putting more of your net worth into real estate.
So number 2, paying off your mortgage really lowers your fixed expenses or your overhead and makes it just feel good, and also a lot easier if you were to ever lose your job or want to be financially independent.
And lastly, always remember, houses are lifestyle choices. They're not quote unquote investments in the typical term. So always look to lower your costs.
Okay. I love this discussion. And I always enjoy just changing my mindset a bit and thinking differently on something that I thought I already, had a very specific view on. So I hope this episode has encouraged people to just understand the pros and cons either way, so that you're informed going into whatever decision you might want to make. And, I think another thing that we didn't really say a lot of is not everyone's in a position to pay off their mortgage as quickly as we may have, or as quickly as some people do. But you often are in a position to make small incremental payments as you have extra money. And I just really would encourage people, like, I know that full amount feels daunting at times, but like, make an extra $40 payment. Next month, make an extra $60 payment to principal. Like, it feels so good to just take those chunks of money. And when you get some payment that you weren't expecting from something, like, throw it to your mortgage, right? It feels so good to do that. And those small increments really add up over time.
And will save you years on your mortgage, and perhaps tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest payments.
Yeah, even that trick of just paying every other week instead of once a month takes years off your mortgage.
So, Maggie, Brandon also asked, do we have any tools available? So we're going to put online in the show notes a link to a mortgage payoff calculator, a Friends on Fire mortgage payoff calculator.
Oh, that's pretty cool. You're going to make that? Do I have to make that?
No, I'm going to make it. You'll make it pretty.
Okay.
So we will put that online with some instructions, and you can see how much interest you would save and how much more quickly you can pay off your mortgage by paying a little bit more each month or by making lump sum payments.
I love it. You know, I love a good Excel spreadsheet calculator.
I know you do.
Can't wait. I'm not being sarcastic, too.
I know.
Okay, this was a good discussion. Thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks for listening. If you've been challenged or inspired by what you've heard, please rate and review the show. You can also subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. And if you have thoughts or questions, we'd love to hear from you, and you can leave us a voicemail or text us at 404-981-3370 or hit us up on Instagram or Facebook. Thanks, Maggie.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.
Bye.